Cash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Today, hopefully we have a really good episode in store for you guys. We're going to be sharing 3 of the best hog decks for ladder. So I got 2 of these decks from CCGS, the Crown Championship Global Series. These were decks used by the pros. We're going to be using the first deck and the second deck, which I'll show you in just a minute, will be the pro from CCGS decks. The third deck will be a really interesting ladder hog freeze lumberjack deck. And am I going to spend this much gems? Oh god, that was a really irresponsible gemming by yours truly to max out my Dark Goblin, but hey, you know, Dark Goblin's pretty good. So anyway, don't pay attention to this second deck, guys. I discovered this deck, I tried it out, try to share it with you guys, but I didn't have a ton of success with it, and if I don't have success with it, odds are you guys probably a little bit better than me, and you're not going to have success with it either. So this is the third deck I was talking about, guys, the Lumberjack Freeze deck. Man, I'm excited for this video. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. I also kind of interweaved my free-to-play account as well as my main account, so you guys can get a flavor for, you know, how to go against other decks in different ranges, different trophy ranges. So no pros this episode, just yours truly. We'll see how we do. So we're starting out with really the Hog Bait variation, and I've shared a lot of Hog Bait with you guys. I shared it in my top 5 hog decks. Every single deck we're seeing little tweaks here and there to kind of fit the appropriate meta depending on when I'm sharing these videos with you. So this is really the latest, at least in terms of what I could find for hog decks out there, hog bait that is. And we have the poison in this deck too, and we have, again, oh no, the skeleton army and the goblin gang. Oh man, if I get through one video without calling the Goblin Gang the Skeleton Army, I should, you know, I don't know. I should get something amazing. Twitter verified. I mean, reach out to Twitter verified. Verify me, because it's something that I really have a challenge with. I don't even know why, but it's awful. So anyway, getting back to the replay here. So I'm going to use poison because I don't have an obvious play otherwise. You'll notice in the previous sequence, while I was lamenting about my my Goblin Gang and Skeleton Army confusion, I actually went pretty aggressive with a second hog push, and the reason I did that was to get more value out of my Inferno tower. I already had it up with about half HP left on it, so I'm more willing to be a little bit aggressive. Now I see that he has 3 musketeers, not liking that since I just used my poison rather aggressively without knowing his deck, but I'm okay here. I have Inferno tower down, I have Skeleton Army, so I called it the right thing. Oh, so Skeleton Army was ready there, and the reason I played Skeleton Army far away from that Inferno tower is I want to make my opponent choose. Are they going to use their zap on my Inferno tower for the hog, or are they going to protect the 3 musketeers and use the zap on the skeleton army? So it worked out pretty well. Kind of mitigated a lot of damage there. So I'm going to save my log here. I'm still going to get 2 hits with that Hog Rider. Not sure if I would have even gotten a third had I used the log, but here comes another hog push from my opponent. So I need to buy time right now. So I'm going to use my log there instead, and this time I'll use my skeleton army on that Hog Rider. So I take a couple hits, unfortunately, but he just used his zap. I know he doesn't have it in hand, and that's the thing with a bait deck, right? I mean, you guys probably already know this by now, but it's so important to identify all the spells your opponent has pretty early on. If you drop your Hog Rider right where I did, it's actually going to save you time if you can't avoid whatever structure your opponent places to kind of distract your hog. So that was kind of a bad elixir pump by my opponent there, and I was able to get tremendous value there, really giving him no value out of that elixir pump. Again, I used my poison, so I'm going to have to be ready with everything here on defense. So we're going to play the Skeleton Army second, and call the Goblin Gang Skeleton Army. I'm just faking you guys out. And we're going to use the Goblin Gang first. That way we can draw out the zap there, and I took a lot of damage there. All I need really is a Goblin Barrel to connect. I'm going to juke Barrel, hoping that he would have the zap ready. Unfortunately, he didn't there, so that was a good job by my opponent, but only one more log will get the job done here. I'm just going to defend against this Hog Rider, and it's going to be trouble, but thankfully, I decided to drop the poison on the tower. So it was kind of a tit-for-tat game there, both of us chipping away at the opponent's towers. I was able to stay one step ahead, not getting tremendous value out of my poisons, really not getting much value at all against those 3 musketeers, but it came out in my favor. It's a really fun deck to play, and I'm not the best in the world at it, so hopefully you guys will have a lot of success if you give that variation of Hog Bait a try. let's get into the Lumberjack deck. So again, a lot of you guys have been asking about Lumberjack decks. This guy against 50 Kings CRC. I'm not sure if I've ever heard of that clan, that variation of the 50 Kings family. Anyway, shout out to 50 Kings, a pretty good clan family out there, an Arab Union, kind of an alliance there inside the game. But anyway, back to the match here. This is the Lumberjack, and the reason this is such a cool deck is because another Three Musketeer deck. Would you guys believe it? Of course you'd believe it. So I'm going to have to whip out the freeze really early on here. I'm going to use the freeze and the goblins to take care of the musketeers, and actually that worked out really well. Now normally against a normal deck, not an aggressive Three Musketeer deck, I'm going to hold back my freeze as a secret weapon, okay? But this is the push. This is the synergy between the Lumberjack and the Hog Rider right here. I know my opponent didn't have anything in their hand. They went pretty aggressive there, and look how long it takes for them. I don't know what happened with my opponent here. Maybe it was just good luck on my part, or maybe they had no elixir. Either way, I was able to take down that right tower. Once the Lumberjack dies, the Hog can benefit from the rage, and it's just a great synergy. It's one of the, this and the Golem beatdown deck, I think, are my two favorite Lumberjack decks out there. If you guys missed that, I'll include the link to that Lumberjack beatdown deck. It was TMD Yao Yao who actually shared it with pro tips on my channel. So now, a minute and a half left in this match. I'm definitely going to pump up. I want to make sure I maintain the pump advantage. As a general rule for elixir pumps, in really any deck that I play, I forgot what pro told me this, but I found it very handy. Just a general rule for any elixir pump is you're always going to want to pump up until like a minute and 5 seconds left in the match. But if you have the tower lead, you should really pump up to even 30 seconds left in the match, or even into overtime. Well, you'd have a tower lead, so there wouldn't be overtime, Ash. Way to go, dude. But you guys get the point. So essentially, if you have the lead, you can be more apt to pump up closer to double elixir time. If you don't have the lead, then you're going to have to concentrate on catching up rather than pumping up. But that's not to say that you shouldn't pump up still in the first 2 minutes, whether or not you have the lead. So I hope that made sense. Maybe it didn't. You guys get the point. Be more aggressive with your pumps if you have the lead, because why not? Why not maintain the lead and maintain that elixir advantage, making it more difficult for your opponent to catch up to you? So here comes a battle ram, aggressive battle ram, and one musketeer left over. Again, I'm just going to freeze here. Freeze is so good on defense. It's been a while since I've shared a good freeze deck with you guys, and I missed it. I was playing this deck a little bit for this video, and I was like, man, I miss freeze. It's so good. It's so handy, especially on ladder. If you can level it up, it's beautiful. It can shut down Three Musketeers. It can shut down a big, heavy beatdown push, like a Golem Night Witch push, and it's just so versatile. Obviously, on offense, too, you can use it with the Lumberjack and the Hog Rider. Freeze is killer. I love freeze for ladder, especially. So that was the Lumberjack freeze deck. Now let's go ahead and switch over to the free-to-play account, and I want to go back to the first deck, the Hog Bait deck, and then we will switch to the third and final deck from CCGS. So here we go, guys. I have the Zap spell in this deck instead of the log, because I don't have the log on my free-to-play account. Also, look at my Dart Goblin, level 2. I'm not sure if I want to go with a level 2 Dart Goblin. Honestly, if I was going to play this deck and I only had a level 2 Dart Goblin, I would rather play the Musketeer. Level 7 Musketeer works better than level 2 Dart Goblin in this deck, even though it doesn't have that same bait aspect. Also, the Princess, if I had her, which I don't, could be a viable substitution for the Dart Goblin. However, for the sake of instructional purposes, we'll go ahead and keep the Dart Goblin in the deck so you guys can see how it works over in Jungle Arena. So let's go ahead and go up against Gar. Okay, Gar. So we're just gonna split no, Goblin Gang. Almost did it, guys. Almost did it. Cut me some slack. I have trouble. I'm a troubled soul. So anyway, here we're gonna go pretty aggressive in the right there. He uses his zap to kill my Dart Goblin. Man, that hurts. But either way, we get a lot of chip damage done on that right tower. Again, early on with this deck, we're gonna be identifying what spells our opponent has. That Hog Rider jumps over the ice column there. Very, very good for yours truly. I was able to take down that push in the left, and now I'm gonna give a little push of my own in the right right here. However, I do think he has enough Elixir to pretty robustly defend this Hog Rider. Oh, maybe I stand corrected. A couple hits by that Hog Rider in. So even though I'm kind of running close to empty here with this deck, I think this was trouble here. It was. Check this out. That Zap killed my Dark Goblin, and the Mega Minion gets a hit on my tower. Ouch. One hit from a Mega Minion really hurts your tower, guys. So look at that. My opponent was able to make a pretty solid comeback. And again, that level 1 Dark Goblin not really helping me out. Can be killed by Zap. That's a 3-for-2 trade, +1 to my opponent. So here I'm going to try to bait out another Zap. Wasn't sure if he had it in hand yet, but either way, look at this. My Spirit Goblins actually make contact. They're going to get a few hundred damage off that tower, so I will take that exchange. Now I'm just going to have my Inferno tower ready. I force a Fireball out of my opponent, and again, guys, at this point, I'm trying to be patient but aggressive. It's a fine line to walk when you're playing this deck. I'm going to use my Zap, reset that Inferno tower, and we are good to go. That's the beauty of this deck, is you have 2 Swarm cards, Skeleton Army and Goblin Gang. You have the Dark Goblin as kind of your ranged DPS, and you can also use it to bait out your opponent's spells, and you can be very clever with this deck. You can use the Skeleton Army, the Dark Goblin, or the Goblin Gang solo at the bridge, just to bait out their log or whatever, and then send in the Goblin Barrel. Now remember, guys, if you have 1 tower down, and you're going to send in, or if you don't have 1 tower down, and you're going to send in your Hog Goblin Barrel, which is really your main offensive win condition, that's your main offensive combination, what you want to do is, you want to send the Goblin Barrel before the Hog Rider, and then the Hog Rider, even if you're not playing the Hog in the pocket, send in the Hog Rider right afterwards. Looks like my opponent kind of gave up there. We'll go again on the free-to-play account here. So what we want to do here is, forget it. We'll go again on the free-to-play account later. We're going into the final deck, guys. This is deck 2, the real deck 2. We're going to go ahead and substitute the Goblins in for the Skeleton. Now, both of these variations were used in CCGS, so it really comes down to personal preference. Do you want a little bit of a faster cycle with that Skeleton in there, or do you want the Goblins for a little bit more beef into your deck and they can't be killed by Zap? Me personally, I prefer the Goblins. So we are back on our main account here, and we're just going to go ahead and cycle an Ice Spirit at the bridge there to start out this match. Now we have an Executioner play in the back, a little bit of a risky play by yours truly. He could get some really good rocket value if he had it, but it turns out he's playing Beatdown, so no rocket in his deck. And the fact that he hasn't used a spell yet kind of tells me he might be playing 3 Musketeers. Now let's talk about this deck. You don't have any defensive structure. You could play Inferno Tower if you want to, but instead we have the Tornado. And of course, Tornado is going to be your main defensive weapon, synergizing very well, as we always mention here, with the Tornado. So I'm going to push back this Golem off my tower with the log instead of using the Tornado, because I was low in Elixir, and I know the Archer is locked onto my Executioner there, so it's really just the Golem on my tower, which can be trouble. You can see he gets a decent amount of HP off my right tower, but look at what we did to the left tower here. So here comes some maxed Elite Barbarians. Oh joy. I'm going to use the Tornado now against Elite Barbarians. He thinks it's funny, and we're going to go ahead and use an Ice Spirit. I was hoping to kill this Elite Barbarian. Does he get 1 hit off? No, he doesn't. So that was pretty good defense. We got extra value out of that same Executioner who was playing defense for us against the Golem and the Archer earlier. He actually took down those Elite Barbarians. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and burn the Lightning against that pump. We don't want him to get the pump advantage, and we've already he says thanks. I think he was happy with that play on my part because he has 3 Musketeers, but I'm okay with that. I mean, we have a lot of weapons in this deck, and that's why it's really one of the most viable Hog decks in the game. We have that Tornado we can use with the Executioner on defense if we need to. Now this is going to be a pretty big push. I was able to take down his left tower, but it left me with not a lot of Elixir to defend. What I want to do is try to stop that Mega Minion from getting any hits on the tower, and I do so pretty well. What you want to do is use your Ice Spirit in situations like that to buy you a little bit more time to use that Tornado to pull units away from your Crown Tower. And that's exactly what happened there. And even though he got a lot of damage off my right tower, it could have been much worse. So I have Lightning ready here. I'm not sure, that was a little bit of a questionable Lightning. I did end up getting 2 hits off that tower, but it left me again in kind of a poor position here. So I'm going to be forced to use my Tornado again a little bit earlier than I would normally like to. I'm going to have to use a bad log there. I mean, I could be playing so much better here, guys. I didn't use that log at the proper time, but check this out. Elite Barbarians, opposite lane. Now, that's going to be good for yours truly. I'm just going to go ahead and use my Knight to lure them into the range of my Executioner, and things are going to be fine from here on out. He has a little bit of damage off both of my towers, but in reality, I think I would have been able to come back pretty easily, even had he taken one of my towers. BMing at the end, I'm not sure why, but happens. So let's go ahead and move into the next match here. This match here is going to be against a strange deck. I'm going to be using the same deck. I'm going against a spawner deck. Have you guys seen spawner decks since like beta? I have a few of them, and this is one of them actually. I've seen this deck, and it's actually, you know, I don't know. I feel like bait decks are a little gimmicky now in the game, but they can take you by surprise. And if you're playing a bait deck like my opponent is here, he's playing a spawn deck, bait deck. He's playing a spawn deck with a Hog Rider, so he's really going to make me work to get through all his structures and whatnot, and Barbarians, especially when it comes to double Elixir time. It's going to be tough to get through the Barbarian hut, the Barbarians, and the Spear Goblin hut. So here I'm going to try to wait a little bit, get good value out of this log, and then am I going to... I'm opting not to activate my King Tower just yet. There were just too many Barbarians in that lane, so instead I'm going to go ahead and freeze everybody with the Ice Spirit, and I don't know, I mean, that's another thing that what you get with Ash instead of getting with the pros is, you know, a pro would know the exact play in that situation, but let me be honest with you guys, I wasn't sure. Should I try to activate, or should I just play a little bit more conservatively and rely on the Executioner there? I thought I probably made the best play, but I did take a few hits on that left tower. So either way, I play the Knight here to distract against that baby dragon and let the tower do some work just in enough range for the tower to hit that baby dragon. And here, this poor Knight is just going to go to his death here. I have lightning selected, but I'm not going to use it yet. I want more value out of my lightning. And in the meanwhile, I'm just going to go ahead and chip a little bit. I want to cycle to my Hog, obviously, and I want to cycle to my Executioner. So using a log in that situation where I know he's really just playing Barbarians and, of course, all the spawned units in terms of what I really need to make sure I save my log for. Of course, in any deck that you play, you want to account very early on for what you want to save your log for. So I send in I knew he had Barbarians in hand, so I decided to send in the Hog Rider into the right lane to try to split his push, because I knew he was getting an Elixir advantage, and I was getting a little bit worried. So I use a defensive lightning right there to take out that last Barbarian, do some damage to the Hog, and do some damage to the baby dragon, and now I'm just going to have to take some damage onto the right tower. So this is the crucial part in the match right here. I see the giant skeleton. I decide to tornado him back and then use my log and my Knight to try to distract for a little bit. That could have been a really rough situation for me. Luckily, I was able to defend all right against it. So again, I'm able to cycle back to tornado. That's the beautiful thing about this deck is it's pretty fast. You know, considering we only have one of the true cycle cards, of course you can add, again, skeletons in place of the goblins, but it's still, I guess, you know, technically speaking, it's pretty much a hog cycle deck. So you can cycle back to your main defensive weapon, aka lightning, you know, very quickly, and you can also cycle back to your main offensive weapon, the Hog Rider. So guys, that is going to do it. Those are my 3 favorite hog decks for ladder right now in the game. I hope you enjoyed the decks, guys. Feel free to go ahead and ask any questions about substitutions or any specific questions on the decks within the first hour after this upload. I'd be happy to answer all your questions. So guys, huge shout out to my YouTube partner, Bren Chong. Thank you for everything, Bren. Make sure you check out his information in the description below. And guys, thank you so much for watching all the way till the end. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you. And as always, take care, guys.